Everybody, so because I'm not there today, we're going to be going through excerpt 3 on here through a video. So I'm just going to be highlighting things that I think are important, and then I'm going to be talking about you, and as I speak you can annotate. Okay, so I've got my highlighter ready to go, but I'm not actually going to write for you because I think you can listen and annotate. So excerpt 3 is the football game, the final football game against Benny's and Joey's. So let's read it. Rory kicked downfield. Their fullback knocked on. Our scrum 20 metres out. I tapped Gonzalez, our lock, on the back. He knew the move. Huge effort, boys, Harrigan yelled as they packed in tightly. Okay, so here we've got the idea of teamwork. Alright, so finally Tom is becoming part of a team. Picking up the ball from the back of the scrum, Gonzalez broke wide, taking the St John's lock and breakaway in the tackle. As Gonzalez fell, he slipped the ball to me and I clapped it on. I spotted the gap, wrong-footed the fullback, outpacing the cover and dived between the posts. Try for Benny's. Alright, so Tom's making, or like he's reaching certain goals. As part of this team, he's able to achieve something that he hasn't been able to ever since he left Mum Billy and ever since what happened with Daniel. So in terms of his transition, he's coming out of that slump that he's been in for a very long time. So you booty, the boys came running. I was swamped. Through the arms and legs jumping around me, I caught sight of Matt. Too good, he mouthed. After the conversion, the score was 9-7. They were just in front, unheard of against Benny's. St John's picked up the pace, and for a while it was desperate stuff. With just over 10 minutes to go, we were defending our line, but with no further score, it was still anyone's game. The crowd was cheering, "Go the Red Machine!" I was sure I could hear Chrissy. With a scrum on a line, St John's was screaming, "Push over, push over!" You could smell their hunger. They wanted to finish us. So notice we've got here these shorter sentences, alright? So the action is getting pushed along quite quickly here. Then through the grunting and straining, a lone St John's voice rose above the sweaty bodies. I caught 2 words, Killer and Brennan. So this is enough to drag Tom back into that sort of silence, into that darkness that he's been feeling ever since he left town and ever since Daniel's accident. I staggered backwards. Now here we get all this physical, these verbs again. I thought I'd prepared for this, but you can't. Short sentences. Your guard is thrust away, thrust, and words hit like bolts of electricity. Okay, so we've got our simile here, bolts of electricity, like every nerve in your body screaming with pain. So here we come back to this physical explanation of pain that we get pretty much all the way throughout the Tom Brennan book. "Motherfuckers," Brad yelled, and with a grunt, the Benny's pack gripped tighter. "Ma!" he roared, and they splintered the St John's pack, driving the green and white scrum backwards. I heard the effort in their groans as they dug deep for me. Okay, so this is Tom's awareness of his friends around him. He's becoming sort of aware that the team is behind him and that he does have friends in this new town of his in Cog. I might want to make a note of that and of the fact that the team is helping him, to become a different person post-accident. The siren rang for full time, the score still 9-7, but you would have thought we were the winners. The Benny's boys jumped all over each other as the St John's team looked on. I started walking. I couldn't stay, okay? So notice the contrast between what's going on here. Tom's isolating himself again. I stumbled across the oval, my legs feeling like jelly, my head like it was disconnected from my body. The red and white in the stands was turning to a mottled blur. "Tom!" Matt called. "Tom!" He followed me as I headed to the fence. "Tom!" His hand was on my shoulder. "Mate, that was fucked. That shouldn't be fucking allowed. The ref should have... I've got to get out of here." Now I was walking faster, okay? So constantly this physical, just trying to get away. "I'll talk to you later, mate, but now I gotta go." Someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned only because I heard her voice. "I've got the car," Chrissy said quickly. "Come on." She took my hand and steered me through the crowd. Okay, so here we've got our first introduction in this bit to Chrissy, other than where he said over here that he could hear her yelling at him. And it's her that's going to help to pull him back to his normal self, as we know, because we've had a chat about her. So Chrissy didn't try to make conversation. She just drove, okay? So didn't try to make conversation. Remember, Tom needs his silences. All the way through that silence, the symbolism of quiet, of darkness, of not talking as a way of dealing with what Daniel's done, as being a big part of Tom's life. And so Chrissy at the moment is allowing him just to escape. I sat there in my dirty footy gear staring out the window. At dusk we passed the sign for Arlen and crossed the Dungog Bridge. Instead of keeping on the highway, Chrissy made a sharp turn to the right. In a few minutes we were on a dirt road and the night sky was shining. Are you kidnapping me? Finally I could talk. Then I started laughing. Oh shit. Are you okay? Whoa. I shook my head and loudly exhaled. Okay. Now here, finally I could talk. Then I started laughing. So there's that transition. Remember we said that in all of these excerpts and in every part of Tom Brennan, like you can literally read 4 or 5 pages and there's some sort of little transition, because when you're dealing with trauma like Tom and his family are, it's the little things that really matter, and it's the everyday bits and pieces that sort of change the way you feel literally on a daily basis. So although we're looking at his greater transition, we can also talk about those little sort of fluctuations between anger and denial and all the other things that we've been talking about on the spectrum. Alright, so we've got this swearing here again, which we talked about last time in the last excerpt. She stopped the car and turned the engine off. Suddenly it was so quiet. Where are we? I whispered. My dad used to take us here for picnics. She opened the door. Oh, I can't see a thing. It's so dark. Stupid idea coming here, hey? No, I needed a bit of space between me and them. Or them and me. Well, you got that. She closed the door. It's freezing out there in the middle of winter. It is the middle of winter, I reminded her. At least you're not in shorts. There's probably a blanket in the back. Thanks. I'll get it. Nah, I mean, thanks for getting me out of there. Okay, so notice this is the dialogue that's happening between Tom and Chrissy that's kind of allowing him to process what's been going on. So I don't know what happened out there, she said, but I could tell you were looking for the exit. Yeah, he said, was that a friend from Mum Billy? The guy following you? My best mate. I put my hands over my face. Shit, Matt. What? I've got to ring him. I've got to. Chrissy put the blanket over us and lowered the seats. She talked about the game against St. John's. I told her every single second like I was still there playing, okay? So she's just letting him speak. Something he hasn't really done a lot of, other than with maybe Uncle Brendan. The boys were awesome, I said. Awesome. We talked about her father and my old life in the billy. We laughed over Brendan pulling the I'm gay talk on me. We killed ourselves over me getting burnt in the shower and the way my face looked when she'd said nice bum. Okay, so they're sort of reminiscing together. She's allowing him to think of the good times. With her, humour exists. Okay, with her he's happy, and we can see that through the conversation that we're having. So in terms of transition, we know she's important for him because she's the one he feels most comfortable with, as we see in this excerpt. We were curled up around our seats, facing each other. I leant over and took her hand. It felt so natural, no agonising involved. I just knew at that exact moment it was the right thing to do. She lifted my fingers to her face and ran them gently down her cheek and around her neck. Then we kissed, our lips so soft together. Suddenly today didn't become the day I faced St. John's. Today became the day I kissed Chrissy Tulaki. Okay, so we've got this, this final sort of closure here. She's his sort of release, his cathartic sort of, I don't know, she is a catharsis for him almost. She relieves his pain a little bit. So you might have to look up that word so that you can understand what it means. But notice we've got, if I look on the other side, we've got this white space here which juxtaposes, or which really makes a break in between this section here, where we've got the actual game and him not being able to handle what's been said, and then we've got this second section of the excerpt. So we could almost say it's in 2 parts, and they contrast the Toms that we have. So you can work out in the first half how he's feeling, and then you can work out by reading in the second half how he's feeling and what it is that creates that transition and that change. And that'll be in your questions. Okay, bye!